Hey kids, welcome back. It's Mr. Moore here, and we are doing our second video for the review sheet. It is about Earth's dimensions. So if you grab out your review sheet, post it on Google Classroom. This is the second part of that, Earth's dimensions. So the first blank there talks about the true shape of Earth. So when most people think of Earth, they think of it as a sphere, nice and perfectly spherical. But in fact, it is something else called an oblate spheroid. That just means it's bulges at the equator and it's squished at the poles. So if you think about Earth is rotating so fast that it actually bulges out in the middle. So oblate spheroid is the true shape of Earth. Not to be confused with the apparent shape, which is a sphere. The second thing on that review sheet is altitude of Polaris. So back in the day, before we had GPS and all this fancy technology to figure out where we were on the Earth, we had to use Polaris, the North Star, the star directly above Earth's North Pole. And the simple way that works is whatever angle you look up to see that star, that is your latitude. So if you looked up 45 degrees, that means you're on the 45-degree north line of latitude. If you looked up 2 degrees, that means you're on 2 degrees north latitude. If you're below the equator, though, if you're in the southern hemisphere, it doesn't work because you can't see that North Star. You can't see Polaris. So that second blank on there is altitude of Polaris equals your latitude. Then it just goes on to talk about latitude and longitude. So a lot of people get those two confused. The way I kind of teach people to figure out which goes which way is if you say latitude and then you say longitude, your mouth goes kind of longer when you say longitude. So if you remember that, latitude goes flat, laterally, longitude goes up and down. So little details about latitude. First, the main line of latitude, the reference line of latitude is the equator. So at 0 degrees, it splits the Earth into the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. So lines of latitude measure north or south of that equator, and the maximum degrees for those is either 90 degrees north, all the way at the North Pole, or 90 degrees south, all the way at the South Pole. Lines of longitude go long. And the main reference line for longitude is that prime meridian. So you're either west of it or you're east of it. So lines of longitude measure east and west. And they go from the minimum value of longitude is 0 degrees. The maximum longitude is 180 degrees away. Remember that little lab we did when we colored on those little spheres. That's a good way to remember that. And I think, my friends, that is actually not quite it. Don't forget the couple maps that we use in the reference table. You've got on page 3, you've got that New York State map, so you have to be able to tell the altitude of Polaris for New York State cities. So if you wanted to test yourself, think about Binghamton, find Binghamton on the map, and tell me what would the altitude of Polaris be for Binghamton. Second one, what would the altitude of Polaris be for, let's say, New York City? Post it in the comments below. We'll check you later. More out.